DocTalk is brought to you by Merck Animal Health, the science of healthier animals.
Hey folks, welcome to DocTalk. We have a great show today. We're going to talk about something that's so important. It's bovine lameness. We have Dr. Matt Meisner here. We're going to talk about what you can do on the farm or ranch to better pinpoint, diagnose, and treat lameness. It's going to be a good show. Thanks for joining us.
I had this horse. It was a good horse, except for when the wind was blowing above 30 miles an hour. Wind was blowing about 35, 40, and I saddled him up, rode him out to the end of the lane, and I thought, well, he's doing pretty good. And about 6 jumps later, I was laying on the ground and thinking, boy, my shoulders sure hurt. I kept waiting, and it didn't get better, and so I went to an orthopedic surgeon, and that showed that I had torn rotator cuff. He said, well, we'll have to do surgery. I farm and ranch by myself. It's not going to work out very well. I'd been sleeping in my recliner for about 2.5 years because it hurt too much to sleep in bed on my side. I'd heard about Kansas Regenerative Medicine Center on the radio. Gotten down there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and by 11:30 the procedure was all over. They just took some fat out of my side here and spun that down for about 45 minutes and then injected it in my shoulders, and I was on my way. It's something you don't hear about, but I thought it was worth a try, and I'm really pleased. It's really worked out well for me.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
ValleyVet.com, ValleyVet.com, Valley Vet Supply.
Closed captioning brought to you by Vet Gun with Amel and new AMA Abamectin Vet Caps, the 1-2 punch against horn fly resistance from AgriLabs.
This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Hey folks, welcome to DocTalk. I'm Dr. Dan Thompson here at Kansas State with Dr. Matt Meisner. And Dr. Meisner is the section head of our ag practices. It's not called that anymore.
Livestock
Services section here at the Veterinary Health Center at Kansas State University. And he is boarded in medicine. He sees cases from all around the country, and specifically you work with a lot of lameness cases, and especially in cattle.
Very much. So we see a large proportion of our caseload is lameness, and it's such a big thing in the industry in all sectors, from feedlots to cow-calf to dairy to young and old, and all in several species. And so we see a lot of lameness, and it's one of those specialties, or that if you like it, they're gonna bring it to you, and we really enjoy it, and we see a lot of variation in what kind of lamenesses come in to have us work on them.
Well, you know, they always told me in vet school that 90% of lameness is in the foot, and I don't know if those percentages are still true, but when we get out in the middle of nowhere and I can't get a hold of someone, kind of our thought process today, folks, is what are some things that you can do on the farm or ranch to do some preliminary diagnosis, specifically associating with the hoof? So take it from there.
Absolutely, and that's one of my slides. I have a slide when I lecture. 90% or better of the lameness is going to be in the foot. And the ability to restrain the animal to have a good exam on the foot is hard. So a lot of times people will try to force themselves to say it's in the shoulder, it's in the stifle, it's in the foot. You know, not that it can't be a stifle or anything, but until I convince myself that it's not in the foot, below the knee or the hock, it's in there. You know, and it takes a little bit of restraint, a little more difficult in a squeeze chute. We have a bunch of techniques that we can do. being safe if they're tied to a fence. But having a good way to have a look at the foot from the outside. Sometimes we can actually observe lesions as they're developing, cracks in the hoof. Okay, be careful about that. A lot of these cracks are actually not the problem. Injuries, swelling that's more to one side versus swelling that's encompassing the entire foot. You know, things like foot rot would be a nice big one. Something that's kind of isolated. So we look at it from afar, we watch how they're walking, we try to identify anything that we can from the outside. But beef cattle especially will end up with small bruises, okay, abrasions, other injuries that we can't really see from the outside. You know, so then we're going to have to try to determine where is the pain located, and then go from there.
Yeah, and a lot of these cattle, when they get pain, they'll quit eating. They're very sensitive, but intake can also be limited, and so it's not just a function of this animal getting worse, but even if it's a mild lameness, we need to get them in. Yeah. Because we're going to lose intake.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, they're prey species. They may not limp as bad as the injury entails. You know, but the production parameters of those are going to fade off pretty quickly.
Cool. Well, we're going to take a break. We've discussed how you can look and see on the outside of the hoof and some of those different things. When we come back, we're going to start dialing in on your diagnosis and a piece of equipment or two that you might want to have handy to make lame cattle better. We'll be right back. Hey folks, Dr. Dan here. Welcome to Cattle First, as sponsored by Beringer Ingelheim Vet Medica. And the term today, biosecurity. Biosecurity is security. It's like having a bouncer that keeps pathogens out and keeps disease out of your herd. One of the best tools you can use for biosecurity is a proper vaccination program, and work with your veterinarian on that. The second one is introduction of new animals. And when we bring new animals on the farm, making sure that if there's a disease that is important that we test for, that we have that done prior to bringing them on the premise. And if they haven't been, then we have a place to quarantine them until we can get the diagnostics back, I think is vitally important. Talking to your neighbors as cattle lean across the fence and communicate with each other, making sure that you have a community-wide biosecurity plan and vaccination plan, vitally important. Keep the disease out, be the bouncer.
I'm Bob Swartz, and I've devoted the last 43 years to helping Kansans reach their retirement goals and to protect the family farm. At Bob Swartz Financial, we believe everyone should be able to live the retirement they've always dreamed of. Our team of professionals can help you create an efficient strategy using a variety of investment vehicles to help you address your financial needs and your concerns. Bob Swartz Financial values commitment and transparency.
Kansas Farm Bureau has served farm families in rural Kansas for more than 100 years. We're pleased to offer new healthcare coverage choices for Kansans in 2020 through Kansas Farm Bureau Health Plans. No matter what stage of life you're in, we'll have options that fit your lifestyle. Plus, our network of providers is one of the largest available throughout the state of Kansas and beyond. For more information, including the different plans available, or to get a quote, visit kfbhealthplans.com.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
ValleyVet.com, ValleyVet.com, Valley Vet Supply.
This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Hey folks, welcome back to DocTalk. Dr. Dan Thompson here with Dr. Matt Meisner, and we're talking about lameness. Dr. Meisner is a boarded internal medicine specialist here at Kansas State University's Veterinary Health Center, where he serves as the section head for our veterinary livestock services practice, seeing cases from all around the United States. And so talk to us, Dr. Matt, about what we're going to do if we take a look. They're obviously lame, but I can't see anything wrong.
Right.
So what are some things that you how you walk through it?
So like I say, there's some of these lesions that are going to be on the surface, but we may not see that. But it's very common for injuries to be below the hoof surface, or actually between the hoof and the coffin bone or the skeletal muscles down in there. It may be laminitis, it may be a deep bruise, it may be a puncture that, I've pulled hedge thorns out of the centers of hooves. You have to have a good look at it, but you may not see anything on the outside. But anything that can get deep won't necessarily show up on the surface. I've seen this coffin bone break before, and again, not much shows up on the outside. So that's where our exam comes in really pivotal in figuring out what's going on. And one of the biggest tools that we use once we get the animal restrained and hold the foot up is a set of hoof testers. Okay, so as I come in on these hooves, gently kind of push a little bit of pressure there. We'll put on each surface. We'll go from side to side. And what we'll find is about the time we hit the sensitive spot, the animal will retract. Yeah. We move on, we look at other feet, we come back to that spot. And if it's repeatable, then we start trimming the foot. So we'll trim it with a hoof knife. And oftentimes we'll find an area that is leaking pus or blood or bruising or areas that that just look abnormal. And laminitis, for example, say we had a big grain overload or something, we'll see this white line look inflamed and irritated. And so we can identify those lesions, but sometimes they're hidden. So we use the hoof testers to find it. We trim the foot, identify it, and then we go after it.
Two of the big ones, toe abscesses and sole abscesses too, right? That we find with the hoof testers.
Biggest ones that we see. And again, the pressure's underneath there, and when you put pressure on it, they say ouch, and we have to relieve that. We have to relieve that from then on.
I just saw a paper showing that on the toe abscesses, that when the animals spin out, it's actually separating a little bit on the white line. Mm-hmm. And the manure and some of that can actually track up in the hoof, mm-hmm. and that's the reason why we're getting those abscesses deep in this coffin bone.
Yeah.
It just amazed me that they could separate that, but it makes some sense to me because I couldn't understand why they'd get an abscess in there.
Right. Well, and it not always has to be a separation, but that is a big risk factor when they have an outside-in track, and that can track all the way up through the side. But I've seen some of them where we had. Maybe they didn't actually abrade it, but they hit it hard enough that they created a bruise in there. And that bruise, we're all circulating some bacteria, and every now and then the bacteria will find that, and it's like a little petri dish, so it finds it and it'll go from the outside inside out, but outside in is the most common way.
The survey we did on lameness, folks, the number one cause of infectious lameness was pen conditions mm-hmm. and environment, and when it came to non-infectious, it was cattle temperament and proper cattle handling and flooring.
Yeah. And when we see an increased number or percentage within a group, we start looking for other environmental causes, whether that's diet or environmental abrasive surfaces or whatnot.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a break. When we come back, more with Dr. Meisner on lameness, diagnosis, and treatment. You're watching DocTalk. We're very glad you joined us.
Sure Crop Fertilizers was started by my father, Don Sherman, and my mother, Shirley Sherman. Family business that started in the 80s. We predominantly focus on plant nutrients and what we can do to give growers better responses with the fertilizer dollars that they do, and what we can do to make those things work better for the grower. We're based out of Seneca, Kansas. We work with growers in their soil analysis to figure out what they need, and then we can put those in a blend that gives them the best results, and so that we can deliver that direct to their farm so that they have those nutrients where they need them, when they need them, and so that they can apply them in a manner that's very efficient to them and works well on their planting systems and what they're doing. Sure Crop Fertilizers has been around for a long time. We always say we're big enough to take care of everything you need, but we're small enough to do it quickly. You can get a hold of us at 1-800-635-4743. Our website is surecropfertilizers.com, and you can always email me at Corey@surecropfertilizers.com, and with any questions you have, we'd be glad to answer it and work with you.
In 1821, a trade route was opened from Missouri in the United States across prairies and mountains to Mexico. In 2021, we will mark 200 years of epic conflicts and grand adventures, larger-than-life personalities, and sweeping landscapes. Join us on an historic journey. The Santa Fe Trail lives on.
Find us on social media or santafetrail.org.
What if U.S. soybean meal were more than a commodity? If seed companies and the soybean checkoff built a better variety? That future is here. The time is now. To meet end-user demands, the soybean checkoff is investing in the compositional quality of soybeans, including meal. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers.
This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Hey folks, welcome back to DocTalk. We're here with our friend and colleague, Dr. Matt Meisner, who has been a staple on the show, and we really appreciate you coming and being on the show. Matt is the section head of the livestock services here at the Veterinary Health Center at the College of Veterinary Medicine at Kansas State University. I've worked with him for years. Unbelievable teacher, great veterinarian, and has served our industry so well. So let's talk. We found that they're lame and we've pinpointed where it is. Help me understand what we're going to do next.
So once we identify it, like we just stated, we've oftentimes got some infection or bruising or an abscess or tissue that is really damaged. And so in order for them to get better, we've got to get just like any abscess, we've got to get the infection out. And so we identified where it's sore. We then oftentimes will actually numb the foot. So we put a tourniquet and numb the foot so that we can really debride all of this damaged tissue that's from there down into the bone, and we clean it all out as best we can. And once we've got to that point, just kind of they're going to have to heal that. And folks with horses, find a really small little hole, but in cattle, boy, it can be quite extensive, and we've got to take all of that dead tissue out, and in order to get them to feeling better.
I know, and I've watched you whittle on hooves, and I'm like, my goodness, there's no way. And that, folks, it always comes back. They're unbelievable creatures at healing themselves.
Right. But if you don't get the damaged and dead tissue out of there, it won't heal. It smolders. You have to get it back to fresh tissue. Yeah. And then, it's a nice thing about cattle, and like a horse, we've got two toes. And so if it's this one that's injured, I could then take a wood block, or we have different blocks that we'll glue onto the good toe. And that lifts them up off of that. It takes the pressure away from that. So they can walk around on this until it wears down. But it really provides them support while this heals up. And
so debride, get the pus, get the dead tissue out, and once that's out, now, how far up? Like if you hit bone,
takes a bone. So it's not uncommon for us to actually get down here and have to scrape away at some damaged bone inside of that tissue. If you don't get to healthy tissue, it won't heal.
And the other alternative, then you put the block on, and obviously then they can walk, but the other alternative is to take that toe off, right?
So probably one of the more common things for a hopeless infection or something that's more practical is actually to just remove the toe and bandage that up. And again, we have one to go here, but to take away the infection and the pain, to just remove that one claw, and then we can let them heal up. They'll heal really fast on that too.
Difference in ability to heal that way, front limb versus back limb?
It depends on the toe itself, actually their claw. They bear different weight on these claws, and so on the outside claws in the back, they bear more. So they do a little better on the inside toe in the back and maybe the outside toe in the front. But as long as we've got a good environment for them to stay in, they do pretty well, But again, that's something, removing a toe in a bull is not very likely because he's got a long career ahead of him and a lot of weight, so that he doesn't do well. Feedlot steer, pretty quick to do.
Yeah. So when we wrap up here, any words of warning on these types of, something that you shouldn't do when you're whittling on a foot, or?
Finding it is not a problem. I think finding it, being quick. So you give a dose of antibiotic. If it's foot rot, it's going to be better in 2 to 3 days. That's fine. Then you really need to dig into this and investigate it sooner than later. I think that's the biggest wisdom. Find it, clean it out, and it's really hard to take too much once you get that infection. It's pretty easy to find. But to let it smolder another 2 to 3 weeks, we all of a sudden get joint problems and a lot of other things.
Shane Terrell's work also showed that the sooner we intervene, the better the chance of the animal actually healing. It used to be we'd let them sit. Now it's get them in, get it taken care of. We'll come back with a wrap-up with Dr. Matt Meisner here on DocTalk. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, looks like it's time for our tour. Welcome to the Fort Wallace Museum. Here at the museum, you're going to find some really interesting stuff, like our replica stagecoach from the Butterfield Overland Dispatch. We've got facades from the fort buildings. We've got an 1870s flag. There's a plesiosaur that was discovered locally. We've got the Ray pump organ collection. We're a little bitty place with a great big story, and we'd love to have you.
KFRM is one of the largest farm radio stations in the nation, dedicated to informing and entertaining rural listeners from northern Oklahoma to southwestern Nebraska. You can catch KFRM in many ways. Of course, 550 on the AM dial, streaming at kfrm.com, or on your smartphone by going to the TuneIn Radio app, or on Ag AM in Kansas on Tuesdays and Facebook every day of the week. KFRM, tune us in. You'll be glad you did.
As dependable as the sunrise, in dairy parlors, open pastures, on ranches and feed yards across America. A place where reputation is more than a name, where the science of healthier animals is a way of life. It's the responsibility that drives who we are and what we do. Every decision, every day. It's your livelihood and our responsibility.
Kansas Corn reminds you that E15 fuel is the right choice for every kind of driver. For the car enthusiast, E15 has higher octane. For the thrifty driver, E15 is priced lower than regular unleaded. For the nature lover, E15 provides cleaner air. For the shopper who buys local, E15 has more ethanol from our Kansas corn farms. Choose E15 for a higher octane, lower price, cleaner American fuel. Message from the Kansas Corn Commission. Learn more at kscorn.com. Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Hey folks, welcome back to DocTalk. Dr. Dan Thompson here with Dr. Matt Meisner. We're at Kansas State University's College of Veterinary Medicine, where Dr. Meisner is the section head of the livestock services in the Veterinary Health Center, which is open to people to bring lameness cases. Dr. Meisner gets everything from extremely athletic and very valuable rodeo bulls to walk-in cases here in the area of a cow with embedded wire. I saw you doing that surgery here not too long ago.
Yeah.
And so we're very fortunate to have him in our profession. Very fortunate to have access to him here at Kansas State. So if you have lameness, use him, because it'll be worth the time. So let's wrap up on what we're doing with the hooves. And I noticed you had some medieval looking.
Well, I have a little different set of hoof trimmers here, but like I say, it's I think the biggest thing we talked about was, if it doesn't get better, simple with some antibiotics to investigate, and we kind of get into there, and it's better to find the problem sooner than later.
Yep.
Part of that, some preventive after we get to that point would be sometimes these will grow abnormally, or we've got abnormal length. Sometimes that abnormal length has led to those injuries where we've now got some bruising, we've got some gravel, we've got all that stuff that's sticking into the bottom of the foot. Big thing now, especially with things, association is scoring feet and having abnormal growth and conformational things in the foot. Okay, so we're actually identifying those types of lesions and trying to eliminate problems that way. But trimming the feet, removing excessive toe, okay, excessive and a little bit of sole. I have a pair of nippers like this, which are a little bit different than your typical horse nipper, but there's various types. But the nice thing about these with cattle, we're usually doing it in a chute, and I can stand back from the side and actually do some nipping that way versus the horse nippers, which are between our knees.
I'm really surprised, just between you and me, well, and everybody else, that feed yards don't have tilt tables.
Isn't that amazing?
I mean, if you had 30,000 head of cattle and lameness is an issue, which it is, because if you have cattle, lameness is going to be an issue, no different than injuries in athletes and things like that. Why we wouldn't put these tilt chutes? They're getting cheaper every day. I mean, they're not cheap, but still.
All right, and I'd had to lift feet in a regular squeeze chute, and I've easily missed lesions. And if I've got what we've got here is a table that I can actually visualize the bottom of the foot, have them good restraint, I can do a heck of a lot more. Never feel like anybody's done a poor job when I've got this wonderful machine table to dig at a foot. I can see a whole lot more. But yeah, it sure does help you to have a good restraint to look at the foot.
Well,
we have it.
And it helps you keep your teeth.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
I think. But sure appreciate you coming on. Great information.
I enjoy it. This is a great subject and very important problem that we need to address.
Awesome. And thank you for watching DocTalk. Remember, if you want to learn more about what we do, you can find us on the web at www.doctalktv.com. Always work with your local veterinarian. I'm Dr. Dan Thompson, here with Dr. Matt Meisner, and we'll see you down the road.
Closed captioning brought to you by Vet Gun with Amel and new AMA Abamectin Vet Caps, the 1-2 punch against hornfly resistance from AgriLabs.
For more information about this program or previous programs, go to DocTalkTV.com.
DocTalk was brought to you by Merck Animal Health, the science of healthier animals.
Welcome to the Western Kansas Wildlife Travel Center, right here in my hometown of Oakley, Kansas. We're the front door of Western Kansas, located on 3 main highways, I-70, US 83, and US 40. And all those roads lead to history, beautiful scenery, and adventure, no matter which direction you go. We now have an IHOP. That brand that you've trusted up and down the road in all your travels is staffed with local folks, real people just like you and me, and we're waiting on you to join us. So for fun, adventure, fuel up, fuel your body, and let's have some fun.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.